Feeling like an outsider. In my own family, tired of being dismissed and forgotten, I finally reached my breaking point and left home. I remember it like it was yesterday, even though it feels like a lifetime ago. My name is Kurt, and for as long as I can remember, I've felt like an outsider in my own family. You might think I'm exaggerating, but I swear, it's like I was adopted or something. No, I don't have some dramatic story about finding out I was swapped at birth, but sometimes I wish that was the case. At least then I'd have an explanation. From a young age, it was clear that my dad, Gerald, had a soft spot for my younger brother, Sam. It wasn't just favoritism. It was like Sam was the sun, and the rest of us were just orbiting around him. Every time Sam scored a goal in soccer, Gerald would cheer like he'd just won the World Cup. When I got good grades or I did something noteworthy, all I got was a pat on the back and a good job, kid. It stung, but I learned to live with it. My mom, Cornelia, wasn't much better. She was always busy trying to please Gerald, making sure everything was perfect. It was like her whole existence revolved around making sure he was happy. And that usually meant Sam was happy too. I was left to fend for myself most of the time, cooking my own meals, doing my own laundry. It wasn't outright neglect, but it sure as hell felt like I was invisible. One night, I came home with a trophy I'd won in a regional science fair. I was beaming with pride, eager to show my parents. Sam had just scored a goal in his soccer match, and the house was buzzing with excitement. I waited for the right moment, holding the trophy behind my back. When the celebrations died down a bit, I stepped forward, grinning from ear to ear. "Hey guys, look what I won," I said, pulling the trophy out. Gerald barely glanced at it. "That's nice, Kurt. Did you see Sam's goal today? It was amazing." Cornelia nodded absent-mindedly, her eyes glued to Sam's highlights playing on the TV. "Great job, honey," she said without even looking at me. My heart sank. I stood there for a few moments, trophy in hand, before quietly retreating to my room. It was in that moment that the loneliness truly set in. I realized then that no matter what I did, it would never be enough. I was always going to be the outsider, the one who didn't quite fit in, but what could I do? They were my family, for better or worse. The years went by, and the feeling of being an outsider only grew stronger. High school was hell. Not only did I have to deal with the usual teenage bullshit, but I also had to come home to a family that barely acknowledged my existence. It was like I was living in the shadow of a shadow. One evening, after a particularly rough day at school, I came home to find my parents and Sam sitting around the dinner table, laughing and talking animatedly. They didn't even notice I'd walked in. I stood there for a moment, watching them, a knot forming in my stomach. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Gerald glanced up. "Oh, Kurt, didn't see you there. Dinner's in the kitchen." I looked at the table. There were the plates of food, but none for me. It was like they'd forgotten I existed. I went into the kitchen and found some leftovers. As I sat at the table, eating cold pasta, I listened to them talk about Sam's latest soccer game, Cornelia's new garden project, Gerald's work stories. Not once did they ask about my day. I couldn't take it anymore. I slammed my fork down, startling them. "Do you even care that I'm here?" I shouted. They all stared at me wide-eyed. Gerald frowned. "What's gotten into you?" "What's gotten into me?" I laughed bitterly. "You act like I'm not even here. You didn't even save me a plate." Cornelia looked flustered. "Oh, Kurt, we're sorry. We just got carried away." "Carried away? That's your excuse." I was shaking with anger. "You've been carrying away my whole damn life. Do you even know what I did today? Do you even care?" Gerald's face hardened. "Watch your tone, young man. We're doing our best." "Your best?" I scoffed. "Your best is treating me like I'm invisible? Like I don't matter?" "Don't talk to your father like that," Cornelia interjected. "Why not? It's the truth." I stood up, knocking my chair over. "I'm tired of being dismissed and forgotten. I'm tired of being an outsider in my own family. I'm done." I stormed out of the house, my heart pounding. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay there any longer. It was like a switch had flipped in my mind. I was done trying to fit into a place where I was never truly welcome. I walked for what felt like hours, my mind racing. I didn't have a plan, didn't have anywhere to go. All I knew was that I couldn't go back home. It was late, and the streets were eerily quiet. The only sound was the occasional car passing by, the hum of distant traffic. I ended up at a park, sitting on a bench and staring at the empty playground. Memories of happier times came flooding back, times when my family seemed like it might actually be normal. But those moments were few and far between, overshadowed by years of feeling like an outsider. I pulled out my phone and called my best friend Jake. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey man, what's up?" "Jake, I need a place to crash," I said, my voice trembling. "I can't go home." "Shit, Kurt, what happened?" I explained everything, my words tumbling out in a rush. Jake listened without interrupting, his silence comforting. When I finished, he sighed. "Dude, that's messed up. Of course you can stay with me. My folks won't mind." Relief washed over me. "Thanks, Jake. You're a lifesaver." I made my way to Jake's house, trying to calm my racing heart. When I arrived, he was waiting for me on the porch. He clapped me on the back as I walked up. "Come on, let's get you inside." Jake's parents were understanding and didn't ask too many questions. They set up the guest room for me and made sure I had everything I needed. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of belonging. It wasn't my family, but it was better than being invisible. Over the next few days, I tried to avoid thinking about my parents and Sam, but it was impossible. Their absence was a constant ache, a reminder of everything I'd lost. I couldn't help but wonder if they even noticed I was gone. Did they miss me? Did they care? Jake did his best to keep my spirits up. We hung out, played video games, and talked about everything except my family. But the more time passed, the more I felt the weight of my decision. I knew I couldn't avoid them forever. Eventually, I'd have to face the music. After a week of crashing at Jake's, I decided it was time to confront my parents. I couldn't hide forever. I needed to know if they cared, if anything had changed. With a heavy heart, I called Cornelia. She answered on the second ring. "Kurt, where are you? Are you okay?" Her voice was filled with worry, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe they did care. "I'm fine. I've been staying with Jake. I needed some space." "We've been worried sick. Why didn't you tell us where you were going?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Would you have even noticed if I hadn't told you?" I retorted. "Kurt, that's not fair," she said softly. "We love you. We didn't realize how much you were hurting." I sighed, my anger deflating. "Can we talk? I need to know if things can change." "Of course. Come home and we'll talk." When I walked through the front door, Gerald and Sam were sitting on the couch, looking anxious. Cornelia stood in the kitchen, wringing her hands. The atmosphere was tense, but I was determined to get everything out in the open. We sat down at the dining table, and I took a deep breath. "I'm tired of feeling like an outsider in my own family. I need to know if things can change, if you can see me for who I am, not just Sam's brother or an afterthought." Gerald looked guilty, his face lined with worry. "Kurt, we're sorry. We didn't realize how much we were hurting you. We've been so focused on Sam, we lost sight of you." Cornelia nodded, tears in her eyes. "We love you, Kurt. We want to make things right." Sam looked down, avoiding my gaze. "I'm sorry, Kurt. I didn't mean to make you feel that way." For the first time in my life, I felt like they were truly listening. It wasn't going to be easy, but I was willing to give them a chance. We talked for hours, airing out years of pent-up frustration and hurt. It was cathartic, and by the end of it, I felt a glimmer of hope. The days that followed were awkward, filled with tentative steps towards rebuilding our relationships. Gerald made an effort to spend more time with me, asking about my interests and actually listening. Cornelia was more attentive, making sure I felt included in family activities. Even Sam tried to bridge the gap between us, inviting me to his soccer games and hanging out more. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. The wounds were still there, but they were beginning to heal. I could see the effort they were making, and it meant the world to me. Slowly, the feeling of being an outsider began to fade, replaced by a sense of belonging. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, I looked at my family and felt a warmth I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just about being seen. It was about being valued, about knowing that I mattered. "Kurt, how was your day?" Gerald asked, a genuine smile on his face. I smiled back, feeling a surge of gratitude. "It was good, Dad. Thanks for asking." Cornelia reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "We love you, Kurt. We're so glad you're home." "I love you too," I said, my voice choked with emotion. "I'm glad to be home." And for the first time in a long time, I truly meant it.